That's stay with us. OPEC Plus delayed a crucial meeting on production policy, causing oil prices to slide. The delay is being linked to quota reviews for African countries, with potential disagreements over production targets. The rescheduled meeting on November 30 coincides with the COP28 Climate Summit. Analysts anticipate discussions on balancing fossil fuels and renewables, while uncertainties persist regarding OPEC Plus cooperation and the global economic impact of potential output costs. Well, joining me for this is Joseph Omoba, an oil and gas lawyer from Olaniwun, Ajayi. Thank you, Joseph, for joining me today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, okay. Thank you. Well, some persons have actually linked the postponement of this meeting to quota reviews for Angola, Nigeria, and Congo. Let me start from how certain are we that that's what's responsible for this postponement?
We cannot say for sure that that could only be the element responsible for this postponement. But however, it's in the news that part of it is because the review for the quota for Angola and Nigeria contributes to this postponement. Yes, it's part of it, but we cannot say for certain that that is all that is to the postponement.
All right, so let's look at this now. How might the outcomes of these reviews impact OPEC Plus strategies and the individual countries' economic outlook?
Every time there is an adjustment to the OPEC quota and the volume of crude oil that OPEC, agrees to push into the market, it impacts pricing. And so really where there is a downward review as to output, we've seen over time that it contributes to increase in prices. And so we think that part of the consideration is upon the necessary OPEC Plus quota review, it's also going to impact on pricing.
Did you anticipate that the postponement of this particular meeting would affect oil prices? Because we saw it affected, and they talked to us about what factors contributed to this impact that we're feeling right now.
Yeah, so really what happens is, because the market is not certain as to if there's going to be a reduction in crude output, there is the tendency that the market takes advantage of volumes available in the market for price decrease. Economically, once you have increased supply, it impacts on pricing. So the postponement for the market really, because of that uncertainty, there is a tendency for the market to think that there won't be that cut in volume. And so as a result of that, you'd see that market oil prices will begin to fall. OPEC Plus has in recent times did say that there is plan to cut down on the OPEC quota of OPEC members, and since that is not happening anytime soon, or since that is being delayed, it has impacted
I want to come in here.
pricing.
When you say since that is not happening anytime soon, can we be so sure about that? I mean, we just have a postponement, maybe a four-day postponement. And apart from that, we know that before now there are talks about cutting Nigeria's production to 1.38 million barrels per day from next year if Nigeria continues on this trend of low production. So would it be okay to say that, they're probably not cutting again? We're all just looking at, are they really going to cut this? And then so far, Saudi Arabia and some other countries that are proponents or people who would always want the cuts and all of that, so far, have they been able to achieve the purpose for which they've been cutting production?
And I think from an African perspective, we also need to be able to drive our point home, because comparatively with other members, there is low production, but we know that there is a lot happening within Nigeria to increase production. And in fact, as at 17th November, data shows that production level has increased up to about 1.7 million barrels per day. And so it is in the
That
best
includes
interest.
condensates.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does include condensate, but we are beginning to see with all that is happening within the industry that production is ramping up. We've gone beyond where we were. Of course, we know that there are certain challenges and these challenges are not insurmountable, because we begin to see the Commission putting out legislations and issues around securities being curtailed. Vandalism, a lot has been done in that regard, and stakeholders are synergizing to see how best a lot of spotting is going to in current, or rather in the very near future, increase spotting and drillings, and so it is on this basis that I think that Africa or African countries participating in OPEC would need to insist on increased quota of production.
Well, when you say that, I'm just wondering if they can really, bring the OPEC Plus community to, agree with them when we have dissenting voices. Remember that America all along has been against cuts, but the cuts do go on. So how do you think Africa will be able to pull this off?
There will always be, for the buyer, there would always be a clamor for and let the volumes come into the market. But for the for OPEC Plus, it's all about curtailing, supply so as to maximize pricing. Mine is that, of course, irrespective of that push for cuts, it should also be beneficial to African countries like Angola and Nigeria. And hopefully, since there's been a postponement, we believe that it would be beneficial for African countries to at least hold their own in ensuring that the quota going forward is not slashed beyond what really their production rate is, in view of increased prospects for increased production. Yes.
All right, let's bring this back to Nigeria. Here in Nigeria, we're not necessarily meeting the quota for this particular period, which is 1.75 thereabout. We're not meeting it yet. The last we did, that was in October, was 1.35 million barrels per day. And you have also confirmed that, when we have cuts, it means that crude oil will sell far more expensive than when it's all there in the market. So which of these situations do you think would be more beneficial for Nigeria specifically? The cuts, knowing that we do not even make up to, or we don't even produce as much as is required. So shouldn't we just take the cuts? Or are we looking at the other impact this could have on the economy, seeing that, we have a projection that already is more than what we produce daily in the budget? That's the 2024 budget. So which of these will actually benefit Nigeria the most?
Like I mentioned earlier, the cuts, of course, there is need for cuts, and it should go around, proportionately. However, with the prospect for increased production, I think the right approach is to, at least have a quota that caters for your increased production, instead of having a quota that you cannot go beyond. I think, like I earlier mentioned, that with increased activities in country, and with all that is going on within the industry, with all of the incentives, and and the passage of the PIA, having to now know for certain what the legislative framework is, the industry activities within the industry is beginning to increase. And to that extent, I think as a country, we should be pushing for increased quota rather than a cut in the current quota that we have.
All right, well, let's look at Brent crude trading above $80 per barrel. Let's look at how, how might the market react if OPEC Plus decides not to deepen output cuts. How do you think the market will react to this?
Yes, it's beautiful that it's $80 today. And what would happen if these cuts do not come in, really, is that prices will definitely go down because of increased volumes. But if it's 80 today, and with demands increasing, the need for energy increasing, and with all of the global dynamics also that impact on pricing, I think that prices will not fall so drastically, yes, but it will resonate to the market that there would be consistency in volumes as it currently is. And one may not be able to conclusively say that this may drive prices down. But I know that beyond the cuts, other factors impact on pricing. And if there's going to be any cuts, like I had earlier said, it should be proportionate. I know that even the quota that is, assigned to us, we've not maxed it out. And so instead of, further cuts within what we currently are given, it is best to have a quota that really reflects our prospect for increased production.
And what would that quota be, if I may ask?
This has to do with the numbers,
Yeah.
and I may not be able to give you a number, but I know that for sure it shouldn't be our current production rate because of the prospects, like I have earlier emphasized.
Well, you're so optimistic about this prospect, and we all look forward to what Nigeria will produce moving forward. And we already know that there are plans to ensure that we rev that up to about 1.8 million barrels per day. I also look forward to it. I believe every Nigerian looks forward to it, coupled with the refineries that will be coming upstream by next year. Well, we all look forward to all of these things. But let's talk globally now. OPEC Plus has already pledged oil output cuts of about 5 million barrels per day. Now, talk to me about your assessment of the global oil supply and demand dynamics given these commitments.
Global oil supply dynamics. Can you just recap that question quickly?
All right, so I was asking a question. I was talking about the fact that given that OPEC Plus has already given its commitment, that's for output cuts of about 5 million barrels per day, what is your assessment of the global oil supply and demand dynamics looking at this commitment?
Yes, looking at this commitment and how the global market will see it, let me piggyback on what I had said earlier. It's true that the market, to a very large extent, looks at the way OPEC, the trends follow OPEC's maybe projections or announcements and all of those. Yes, OPEC has given a number and the market is looking towards that number. In fact, the market is not comfortable with that number. So what will happen is, in the event that these volumes don't come into the market, it will make prices increase. And in the event that these cuts are accomplished, this would also stabilize prices. And to the extent that volumes don't max out the 5.5 billion barrels per day, then you would see prices begin to rise. So I know the market is anticipating that the cuts will happen, and well, it's good for the cuts to happen. I'm not against having these cuts happen, but the beautiful thing is that whatsoever it is what with the cuts, the market, the prices will continue to rise because of these cuts.
All right, I remember earlier you talked about how that the cuts are really not enough to determine the price of crude oil. So talk to us about these other factors that influence the cost or the price of crude oil.
Yes, I had mentioned that the cuts are not the singular reason for crude oil price dynamics, and other issues that can impact is instability in other areas of sources of energy, where you have destabilization in other regions that would ordinarily that are not OPEC plus, they are not in that basket. These can also impact demand, impact supply, and invariably, as a result of a drop in supply, an increase in demand, it reflects on the pricing. Other issues that could impact is where renewables come into play, and with these renewables coming into play, alternative sources of energy, it would also impact on demand. So really, it's not all about the cuts. Other issues could play in determining pricing.
Well, let's look at this. There are speculations that Saudi Arabia might ask other members to share the task of output cuts. Now, how do you see the dynamics of cooperation among OPEC Plus members evolving, especially with Saudi Arabia's influence?
Yes, influence in this sense, you mean the volume that it brings into the market. And that's why I said that for African countries, really, the emphasis should be on how to strategically bargain our own position with respect to our own quota. Of course, we know Saudi Arabia has a lot of influence in OPEC, and that's largely driven by, volume and, volume in production. And so to the extent that other countries are beginning to also increase in their production capacity, what should happen is that the quota, or yes,
Okay.
the quota. Were you saying something?
Yes, I was just urging you on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as a result of that, the quota, it should be proportionate. It should
Absolutely.
be
I think this is a
proportionate.
good place to end the conversation. Joseph Omoba, oil and gas lawyer from Olaniwun. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.